up, babes? Biakai uploads 3 times a year, Smite here. Yeah, I bought a green screen. I can be anywhere I want to be, and there's nothing you can do about it. Bam! I'm in Antarctica. Boom! I'm in your colon. I've been playing Smite for almost a decade now, and one of my earliest memories was actually when Medusa got released. And let me tell you, I was rock hard when I saw that. But for essentially the entirety of my Smite career, I've been playing on a controller. I have like 6,000 hours using the inferior input device, because that's essentially what it boils down to. Controller is objectively a worse input option than a keyboard and mouse. I grew up on Halo and Call of Duty, so it was just natural for me to want to use a controller to play Smite, and I didn't really have a desire to swap. But that all changes today, baby. Well, actually, I guess a month ago, because through the entire month of February, I played Smite only using a keyboard and mouse. And that's what this video is about. I'm just gonna talk about why I swapped, the journey it took to actually swap to a keyboard and mouse, and just my final thoughts on input related stuff. So the first sign that I thought I might swap was actually when they announced Smite 2 would have active items. There wasn't really active items in Smite 1, there were only relics. And unlike Smite 2, Smite 1 had 2 relics, and it was usually like beads, Aegis, beads, blink, stuff like that. And so therefore you only had 2 buttons to worry about in terms of using your relics. In Smite 2, you can have 1 relic, but there's a whole slew of items with an active component to it, with one of the easiest examples being Talisman of Purification, which is literally just a group CC cleanse for your team. But you are limited to 3 active items per build. So with the addition of the 1 relic, that's 4 potential actives that you need to keep track of. And I'm gonna be so real with you guys for a second. Controllers don't have that many buttons. Controllers are so limited in the amount of buttons you have that it got to the point where they needed to use a combination of buttons to activate certain actives or relics or ultimates or whatever your controller layout is. And honestly, that just feels kind of bad to press a combination of buttons, and that also leaves room for error. So like you could accidentally cast an ability you didn't need to. And obviously not every single build will have 3 active items and the 1 relic, but there is potential for that, especially in roles like support. So I knew about that going into Smite 2, and I was like, okay, if there's ever a time to seriously consider KBM, it would be early on in Smite 2's career. So then that brings me to the tipping point of why I swapped. And I'm not kidding, it stemmed from a really shit day of ranked. There was just one day where I was streaming and I was having a shit day. I was losing a lot of games, and it was typically like mostly my fault. Like you could just tell that I was the problem. And the one game that I did win that stream, I got giga carried. Like my jungler was camping my lane. My jungler was like 20-2 or some shit. Like he deserved that win, not me. And like shit like that happens. I understand it. But typically, like, I'll just go fuck off for 30 minutes after I'm done streaming or I'm done playing ranked, and like, it's fine. Like, it's a video game. Who the fuck cares? But like, I woke up the next day and I was still tilted. I don't know why that day in particular was just so ass for me. And it probably is a bit of an ego thing, because I do think that I'm like a pretty decent Smite player. Not to jerk my own cock, but you know, I've been in Masters every single season. Even when the controller and keyboard and mouse queues merged, I think it was at the end of season 9. So like knowing that I normally play a lot better, play a lot more consistently, and I just wasn't, was really frustrating. And on top of that, this controller's broken. The D-pad doesn't work sometimes, so it makes it really fucking hard to VGS. Oh, fuck! And so the next day I woke up and I was like, okay, I need something different. I normally use wired controllers, but I'm like, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna go get like a wireless Bluetooth controller and just see how that feels. I typically like wired. I think the response time's a lot better, but I was like, you know what? Maybe a change of pace is needed. So I get off work, I go to Best Buy, buy a controller, come home, and my PC doesn't have a Bluetooth adapter installed. I don't know why I forgot about this. I think it was because my laptop does, and I just got confused. So whatever, shit happens. I drive to Walmart. I buy this USB Bluetooth adapter. You literally just plug it in, and then it acts as a USB drive. And you might notice this is unopened, because when I got back from Walmart, I lost the controller. I still don't know where the fuck it is. I'm not a superstitious person, but I don't know how the fuck I lost it. It was sitting on my desk right next to me when I left for Walmart, and then when I came back, it was gone. It dead ass just grew wings and flew away. I still don't know where the fuck it is. I'm down like $50, man. And so having already thought about switching to KBM, being giga tilted from playing like ass the previous day, on top of buying and immediately losing a new controller, I was just like, fuck this. I'm learning keyboard and mouse. So yeah, I pulled up my live stream. I started playing on KBM, and oh my fucking god, it was rough. So I tried a bunch of different keybinds, and ultimately I landed on Shift, Q, E, and spacebar for my abilities 1 through 4. I have a mouse button right here that I use for a relic, and then I have the scroll wheel for interacts, like picking up buffs and, you know, jumping and shit like that. And then F and caps lock for my active items. But Biakai, those are only 2 buttons dedicated to actives. Didn't you just talk about how you could have 3 active items in a build? I know, I literally just refuse to buy 3 active items at this point. I'm an ADC main, guys. I struggle to do shit that isn't as simple as hold left mouse button, do damage, win game. Throw me a fucking bone, dude. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you can probably figure out where the struggles were when learning KBM. Literally, the saying practice makes perfect applies directly to this, because I was noticing myself getting better every single day. The main struggle point for me was just like literally figuring out and remembering what buttons I need to press to do something. I can try and explain it as in, like, when I'm on controller and I need to, let's say, dash away from somebody, I don't think about I need to press this button to dash in this direction. I just fucking do it, right? But when I was learning KBM and let's say my lane was getting ganked, I had to like literally think to myself, your dash is on E, you need to turn around and press the E button. And then sometimes I would just like hit Q anyway and use the wrong fucking ability. And honestly, it's been a whole month. I'm still struggling with this, but it's not nearly as bad now. Usually it's for like active items I'm not used to using. And something I figured out when learning KBM and why it was a struggle for me is I'm not used to moving my fingers a lot when I played Smite. You see, when I was playing on controller, I held it claw style, so I would hold it like this. So I didn't need to move my fingers for anything besides VGSing because I was on the D-pad. So like this finger would hover abilities 1 and 2. This finger would hover auto attack and ability 3, and then this finger would hover ultimate and relics and stuff like that. So like the only movement I had to do was press down. And it seems really small, but when you have so much time on a game where you never need to move your fingers, to suddenly being on KBM where my fingers just naturally hover WASD and I need to physically move them to get to an ability, it seems small and stupid, but like that was a hurdle I had to hurdle over. So I kind of want to talk about some of the gods that I was playing when learning KBM, and honestly I started out with CERN solely because I just decided to ignore the first ability entirely. And this is a hill I'll die on. I don't think CERN's first ability is good, especially early game. Later game, it's great. It's pretty solid late game, especially if you know how to like min-max using it. But if I'm ahead of my lane opponent or just even with him, I think leveling the 2 and the 3 is a lot better for the 1v1 potential because of the burst damage you can get. So yeah, my thought process was just if I'm learning a new input and I'm not familiar with the buttons, I should like start slow and work my way up. Also, when I was playing CERN, I just didn't build any fucking active items. So I didn't have to worry about my first ability. I didn't have to worry about actives. And I was solely focusing on the 2 types of abilities in the game, or the 2 main types of abilities in Smite, being damage ability and a movement ability. Then once I got comfortable with that, I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna play some Uller. And this is where it really settled in the advantage of a keyboard and mouse over a controller. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew that KBM had a significant advantage over controller. It just didn't settle with me until I started playing Uller. Because guys, I have 5 stars on Uller in Smite 1. Uller is also one of my worst characters in the entire game. There was some meta back in like season 5 or 6 where Uller was just like giga OP, and so I committed to learning him because I wanted to like be good at the meta gods. And fuck, I played only Uller for like a fucking month, And I just never got good with him. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't figure it out. Ultimately, it was because my mechanics are dog shit. But then when I picked him up on KBM, do you want to know how many games it took for me to like reach the level I was at on controller or even surpass it? 3 games. After 3 games of Uller on KBM, I considered myself a better Uller than I was on a controller. I was hitting more axes than I'm used to. I was just hitting more skill shots in general that I was used to. And I've noticed, like, up until this point, I've noticed all the small things that KBM has an advantage of over controller. But Uller was like the first oh my fuck moment that I had where I really understood the advantages. But then something weird happened. Like a week later, the inverse happened. Rama was released, which is my favorite god in the game. He will always be my favorite god.
Brain dead, left click, hold one button, win game.
I love that fucking type of character. But then he was released, and I was struggling, and I could not figure out why. And then it dawned on me. Outside of Rama's ultimate, and this is going to be a hot take, but I promise I'll explain myself. Rama was easier to pilot on a controller than a keyboard and mouse. And it's due to his dash being a directional dash. I've made 2 tweets about this topic. One was like a small tweet, one was a video. And god damn it, I'm discussing it a 3rd time because I'm fucking correct, okay? I'm crashing out, man, I'm crashing out. There are some abilities in Smite that are omnidirectional, where you don't necessarily dash in the way you're facing, you dash in the direction that you are moving. So on a keyboard and mouse, you are limited to 8 directions that you can dash. Up, left, down. Why am I doing this? Up, left, down, right, and then the 4 diagonals. On a controller, you have an analog stick, so you get the full 360-degree scope. Hey guys, Editor Biakai here, and while editing this video, this segment actually, I didn't realize how many people did not know Rama was omnidirectional. I kind of assumed that a lot of the people saying I wasn't correct, and I'm talking explicitly about Rama being able to dash in any direction he wants on controller, which he can't do on KBM. I thought they were trolling because that's been so obvious to me since I picked up Rama. I'm sure a lot of the comments saying that I'm wrong were baiting me, but like even a former developer commented and said, you know, Rama dash only goes in 8 directions, right? And then people under those comments were like agreeing with her and saying like, yeah, no, you're correct. Somebody even said it's always been that way. For my mental sanity, I'm chalking it up to me getting baited really fucking hard. But in case they weren't baiting me and people genuinely didn't know, here you go. Like it's always been that way on controller. Rama can dash in any direction he wants. And it was like these small little optimizations that I think makes Smite so interesting to me. Because there are like hyper niche scenarios where, let's say, snapping your dash at, let's say, a 30-degree angle is more optimal than physically turning and then dashing in the direction you want to go. Although I will say there was one comment when I was talking about this on Twitter that I can't really dispute. And he basically said that turning and rolling on a keyboard and mouse is the exact same as flicking the analog stick in the direction you want to dash. It's just, you know, different muscle memory. And that I can't really dispute that. Basically, he's saying that's because you're used to flicking with your thumb rather than flicking with your whole hand. But that's also why I struggled so much, because I'm not used to turning around and dashing on Rama. And it literally is as simple as, oh, just turn your camera and then dash that way. But I'm not used to doing that. I have 25,000 worshippers on Rama. I never ever had to turn my camera to dash in the direction I want to go. And guys, I know I could hold down the S key and just dash backwards, but that also might not be the optimal way to dash. You're still gonna have to turn a little bit if you want to dash in the most optimal direction. So basically, on top of learning a brand new input, I have to unlearn years upon years of muscle memory for my favorite character. I wish there was more to say on this topic, but those are like the main points I could think of. The 2 gods that really highlighted the difference, and then just the general issues. There was one comment that really motivated me, and it was from somebody that did make the swap from controller to KBM, and they just said at some point you're gonna like hit this eureka moment where you're gonna start improving so much faster than you would on controller, because that was kind of where I felt like I was at with my Smite journey. I felt like I hit a wall on controller where I just could not improve at all, actually. And granted, that's 100% my fault. I'm not blaming the controller. Obviously, there are things I could be doing differently. I could be reviewing my games and hyper-analyzing them and trying to figure out what small optimizations I can do every single game to make myself a better player. That's 100% on me. But at the same time, I do believe it's a lot easier to improve as a player if you are using a keyboard and mouse. And if you've been following me, at least on Twitter, for a long time, you know that I've preached that, you know, it's not the controller's fault you aren't good at the game, it's your fault. And there have been tons and tons of instances where people have proven that to be correct. I mean, like, shit, there's even a play-ins tournament where the reward for winning the tournament was getting into the Pro League. And there wasn't one, but 2 controller players at one of these tournaments. It was Dashboard and Jangaru, and they both played in this tournament using a controller. And I fully understand that those are just outliers, right? That doesn't represent the average, like, good controller player. It's more so just proof that it is possible if you put in the time and effort, regardless of what input you're using. And whenever I mention this, there's always that one person that's like,
oh, but they didn't win the play-ins tournament. There hasn't been a controller player in the SPL ever.
And like, yeah, that's not the fucking point I'm making, though. Like, just stop blaming the input. It's you. It's me. Like, I'm the reason that I suck. The only thing that blaming your preferred input does is just hinder your own progress, because you aren't taking accountability. You're trying to find something to blame so you don't have to take accountability. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on this topic. And this is gonna sound corny as fuck, but it genuinely feels like I'm entering a new chapter in my Smite journey, and I'm just really excited to see like how good I'm going to be, or bad. I could just be dog shit within the next like couple months comparatively to how I used to be on controller, let's say 6 months ago. So yeah, that's about it for me. I don't know when I'm going to upload next. It'll either be a few weeks from now or a few months from now. We'll just have to wait and see. Outside of YouTube, I do stream on Twitch fairly consistently, so if you want to swing by and say hi, that'd be great. I aim for like 3 to 4 streams a week. Life has been pretty busy recently, so I haven't been doing that, but I typically do stream 3 to 4 times a week. So if you want to swing by and say hi and maybe form a parasocial relationship that could lead to a dual income household, that'd be pretty awesome. But that's it from me, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. This is not the album either, these are just stories. This shit's still so cold when it drop, it's gonna be a motherfucking snow day. Hey, boy, it's good and he knows it.